We are live and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode on our live chat series. And this evening, we'll be talking with Anthony Ehimare, who is an information analyst. And I mean, a lot of you guys have been asking me, can a pharmacist, transition into information analyst? And I decided to bring somebody to come and share his experience because it's usually better to hear from those who have skin in the game. So that's why we're here today. So I'll leave Anthony to introduce himself, even though I've mentioned the name. So Anthony,
Yeah.
over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Ehimare. Well, I'm a pharmacist by profession, but currently working as an information analyst with the NHS here in the UK. I'm a Nigerian that migrated to the UK for a master's course in health informatics in 2021. Just finished in 2022, and yeah, here we are. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much for that very brief introduction. So I think my first question is, what was your motivation, or what motivated you to make the transition from pharmacy to information analysis?
Yeah, I think it's quite simple, and it goes along with the trend we're seeing globally. How health, I mean, technology is disrupting every single sector, from finance to healthcare. Every single sector is being disrupted by technology, and for some of us who've practiced in Nigeria, a developing country, it was very easy for me to see the benefits of technology, how technology could impact healthcare in Africa, especially in the pharmacy sector in Nigeria. It's a peculiar situation we have there. So having practiced there for a couple of years, I could see some um, you know deficits and places where we could use technology to improve our care and service in healthcare. So that was basically what motivated me, really. And it was also what motivated me to study my master's course in health informatics and to also learn some, skills that I'm using to work today.
So it wasn't really, probably because maybe you were tired of clinical pharmacy and all of that.
No, not really. Not really.
Because
It wasn't.
I know a lot of persons who do this transition from healthcare to another part of health tech. Really, most of them say they're tired, and all of that. Well,
Yeah.
just it's good to have that
Yeah.
clear. So, I mean,
No.
looking at your current role now, I mean, how do you apply your knowledge of pharmacy in your current role as an information analyst?
Very interestingly, my current role is pharmacy information analyst. So I'm particularly working with pharmacy data, like in the hospital, where I'm in, and it's quite relatable because having studied pharmacy and you know being employed to do things related to improving pharmacy services in within the hospital, and to like cut down cost of medications that are being used, improve patient healthcare in line, even though you're trying to cut
Yeah.
down cost and all that. So having all those knowledge, knowing the right medications to you know it just helps improve the interventions you can proffer to the management. So it's been really interesting, and it's been really helpful, having
So
studied pharmacy and then being involved with in this position.
that's quite interesting. So I mean, so that means the learning curve is not so deep because it's something you're already used to. So
Yeah,
you're now applying it to whatever you're doing at the moment.
exactly. I mean, if there's a learning curve to this, at all, is learning the technology itself. Like, okay, information analyst is basically data analyst, right?
Yeah.
And learning the tools you use on a day to day to be able to get that information out, to pass to your manager and be like, okay, this is what we need to do regarding so intervention and all that, is what has really been it. It's just the learning the technology, and trying to improve your skills, on a daily basis. That's just been the hard thing about it.
So thank God you even mentioned the technology because I was also coming to that part. I mean, so what tools do you use or are necessary to become a successful pharmacy information analyst?
Okay, I'll generalize this to the NHS for just for the benefit of our viewers and people who may be wanting to get apply for jobs or similar roles. The most important tools that are used within the NHS and in my organization are just simple. They are the Microsoft tools, SQL, Power BI, Excel. As simple as Excel may sound or be, those are majorly the tools we use. And then a few legacy systems with regards to the electronic health records that are being used in each of the hospitals. Those are basically what are required. So if for people who have prior knowledge of using Excel, it's a major step, it's a major skill to have. SQL as well, Power BI, which is quite new and is being adopted in many of the NHS institutions. Those are the major tools we use. Although in my institution we use one of the Microsoft softwares as well, the Microsoft Analysis Services, which is otherwise known as SSRS,
Okay.
right? SSRS, the SSMS, which we majorly use for our databases, and yeah, basically that's it.
So looking at, I mean, these tools now, the way you're calling them, they sound, I don't know, are they difficult to learn?
Um, it's yes, not difficult per se. It all depends on the perspective. Now, so what I would usually tell people who ask me this question is, if you have the interest, you can learn all these things, and the proper if you have proper guidance as well, right? Technology, from what I've seen, there is a bit of confusion to it. A lot of people, especially newcomers, they look at it and they're like, "Oh, it looks so difficult," especially because of what people talk about and everything, because of the big terms and all
Yeah.
the tech language and everything. But it's quite simple, to be honest. It just depends on what you want to use it for. If you know exactly what you want to use it for, then it's very easy for you to get a directed approach to it. Like, for example, if you wanted to become a master of Excel, you know in 1 week, you can do that. If you know the right sources, if you know the right things to do. Like, for example, what is mostly used, like within many of the places I've worked and I've used Excel in, is there are pivot tables, right?
Okay.
VLOOKUPs, right? Data validation, conditional formatting. You know how to, write the basic formulas, the sum ifs, if error, formulas and all that. So if you know those basic things, you'll be able to deal with almost any Excel problem, right?
Okay.
And in data analysis too, using Power BI, Power BI is something that is quite simple, but yeah, it does take a while to learn it. So if maybe at the end of this program, I could probably drop some resources where
Yeah, that would
people
be
could
awesome.
learn, yeah, could learn Power BI easily, even on YouTube. On YouTube, there are a lot of very good free resources, that you can use. Data camp is where I mostly learn from, and they
Okay.
teach data analysis skills to. In fact, they break it down, and if you're able to get an account in data camp, you can get a lot of learn a lot of skills very easily there. I really like the way they organize their tutorials. They sometimes organize it like a career track. So you can start
Okay.
from the basic introduction, then you learn all the basic steps up to the most complex, things you may need. in terms of that technology stack. And there's a track like that for Power BI. There's a track like that for SQL. There's a track like that for even Excel, on Data Camp. So, and
Yeah.
Data Camp has a free 3 months subscription for students, right?
Okay.
So students can, get a 3 months subscription on Data Camp and learn from there. So it all depends. It just depends on the persons who wants to learn, their willingness to learn. Really, if you're really,
Okay.
and then you could put in those, efforts within a week, 2 weeks. Your confidence on handling data problems will really increase. Imagine what you'd have done in 3 months, in 6 months, right? So I wouldn't really say it's difficult.
All right. That's interesting and quite exciting. So let me take you back a bit. I mean, you mentioned that you studied health informatics
Yeah.
prior to getting this role or landing this job. So, what was your experience like? I mean, studying health informatics because you're coming from a pharmacy background, and was it difficult? What was it like generally?
Oh, well, that's a very interesting question because while I was doing this course, while I was studying health informatics, it felt like I had no bearing, to be honest. It felt like I didn't even know what I was doing. But
Yeah.
now being in the field, in the industry, I can see every single thing that I've learned, in the course playing out, right?
Okay.
And it all health informatics is a multidisciplinary subject. Basically, it's it has to do with how you are able to collaborate with people, first of
Yeah.
all, understand health technologies, how you use them, and eventually how all these factors come together to improve general healthcare service. you know Basically, that's what I would summarize health informatics to be. It's not just a single simple subject. Really, it's quite a wide concept, and it's a multidisciplinary concept. And health informatics, from what I have seen it to be, would really expose you to what your interest could be. Like I have colleagues who studied health informatics, and some of them are doing project management, in terms
Yeah.
of implementing health technologies in health institutions. I am doing data analysis, right? I have another colleague who is into hardcore, development, with a tech company. So there's so many things you can do, but having that vision, knowing, where what you want to do with, what you're learning, you know, is what really drives you. And the health informatics knowledge is just like a background knowledge you have that just propels you to do some of those things that you really want to do. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you wouldn't say on a scale of probably 1 to 5. I mean, because I usually get this question: is it
Yeah.
difficult to study health informatics? And I said that one, I don't even know. So let me put it to you now: is it difficult?
well, well, to be honest, I really don't think anything is difficult. Like I said earlier, it all really depends on how you apply yourself. And if you're interested in what you're doing, you'll find a way. But in terms of efforts, the efforts that is required to study, I'll be specific. Being an immigrant, coming to the UK without student loan, you have to work to
Yeah.
be able to, some people maybe even complete paying your school fees, pay your rent, feed and everything. I think that's what will really be the difficulty there, combining studying with doing all those many different things. Right. And like I said, while you're studying health informatics, you start to think of, oh, how can I apply myself? How can I apply this knowledge I'm getting, in terms of like practicing professionally, right? So
Yeah.
being in that space mentally, physically, and everything is what is really draining, right? Because while you're thinking about all those things, you're thinking about other skills you could be doing. You may want to get some certifications in the bag. You may want to be learning some of these skills that are required in the industry, right? And also combining it with what they are teaching in class. So that's really the difficulty there. So once you're able to manage your time, you know, be able to, put your activities in order in terms of your work, your study time, your personal development time, I think you'd have pretty much figured everything out, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. At least that's what it was for me. I really didn't find the course in itself difficult. It was, trying to combine everything I had to do, at the same time. That was, the bit of a challenge. But
Yeah.
eventually it was okay. It was good. We figured it out.
Because I know, I mean, a lot of persons who don't have any, what do I call it now, technology background really, are
Yeah,
able to, get into the program, do it seamlessly, and leave really. So
yeah, basically.
it's really all about the dedication and maybe commitment, like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
to get it done.
yeah.
So looking at how fast paced the tech world is really, because I mean things are changing every second, let me
Every
even say
minute,
every
yeah.
second. So how do you manage to keep abreast of tech and trends in this space and being able to always position yourself for opportunities in those areas?
hmm I think it all boils down to being innovative, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, there's so many. You could learn a particular technology stack and get stuck in it if you do not want to improve. And if you're working and what you're using in your institution is, it could be pretty much fixed, because there are so many things that are routine in healthcare in terms
yeah,
of what you need to output, for as per work, right?
yeah,
But if you wanted to continue to improve on your work as a person, that has improved on your own personal standards, then that's where digging deep comes in. So for me, it's just, I keep refreshing my knowledge, basically. Try to, you know, go. There are so many tech forums online, even Stack Overflow. You could find a lot of new things there. So for me, that's basically what I do. And I try to also stay updated to new releases. What I mostly use in my work is Power BI, right, and the Microsoft um, tools. So what I do is stay up to date with new releases, all the updates that are being released for each of the softwares, and
yeah.
basically that's, and yeah, that's really it, really.
That's cool because again,
Yeah,
I think different approaches work for different persons.
yeah,
Like for myself, I tend to subscribe to newsletters that I think are relevant to my
yeah,
area because I read a lot really. So relevant newsletters work for me. So every week, I get notification on what's going on in the industry and all of that. Then I
yeah,
think I follow a couple of persons on LinkedIn who are like
yeah,
at the forefront of
yeah,
whole tech stuff, and
yeah, yeah.
so they write almost every day. So I really find their newsletters quite informative. I think that what
Yes, yes,
works for me really.
exactly. I do that too. Like Medium, this blog,
Yeah,
uh,
medium. Yeah,
Medium. Yeah, I use Medium a lot to stay updated and to even learn, because there are a lot of guys who put up some tricks tricks of how to quickly do some things there, and it's been really helpful. And on Twitter as well, I subscribe to, like, I've forgotten what they call it now, but like technology, right? If you go on Twitter, there are some tags you can subscribe to,
Two.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, I subscribe to the technology tag, and I get a lot of, daily breakdown of updates. I'm currently from Twitter very becoming very interested in using Chat GPT
Yeah.
now, and yeah, because of the way it's been hyped, and I really want to see what it's about. So yeah, so those social media is also very good as well.
Okay, I think somebody has a question here. Okay, Suleiman says, "What work can a Nigerian doctor do over there aside practicing one's profession?" Well, I think I'll probably just chip in a couple of ideas or answers. So again, in terms of work, really, it depends on you what you're looking for. Uh, I know a couple of persons moved to the UK and probably take a master's, maybe in public health. I think public health is the most popular MSc for
Yeah.
doctors. And while they are at it, they try to finish up the PLAP 1 and PLAP 2
Hmm.
um, exams, get their GMC license, and ultimately get into clinical practice. But for those who are looking at doing something else aside the clinical profession, there's a lot to do, really. I mean, like Tony mentioned, there's project management. There is a lot of project management roles in the UK. So it's all about you positioning yourself, taking the relevant certifications, Prince 2 to be precise. I think that's what works for the UK. And, find yourself there. There are product roles which don't allow you, I mean, you don't need to know how to code to be maybe a product manager or a product owner and
Yeah.
all of that. You have research, clinical research, you have UX research, that's user experience research, you have UI research, user interface research. So these
Hmm.
are also possible jobs I can do. You can go into project support. I know there are a lot of project support officer roles, and some of them I've seen. They don't require you to have Prince 2 per se. So it's all about looking at the details and figuring it out. You have research support officer roles. Those who might be a little bit, tech inclined or digitally savvy per se, you could land roles in communications, social media communications, digital marketing. So these are just possible examples of what a doctor can actually do. I know a lot of doctors who are project managers in the UK and they're doing quite well for themselves. So I hope that Suleiman, if you're still asking, I hope that gives a little clarity as to what you're asking. Then I think somebody, okay, let me pull this up for you. This is from Caramel Phillips. So, as a pharmacist who wants to do a master's in health informatics, what skills and knowledge can help out? So, let me put this to you, Tony.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question. And like I said earlier, right, health informatics is a broad topic, and it's a multidisciplinary one, right? Even the definition of health informatics incorporates that term, multidisciplinary. So
Yeah,
it's really not one thing per se, right? So, and the in terms of skills and knowledge, it really just depends on your interest. Health informatics is basically about improving healthcare using technology and other organized systems, really. And it has to do with collaboration. So those are soft skills that are needed. Collaboration, having an eye for detail, being a good manager. So that's why a lot of people study health informatics and are able to go into project management, right? And project management, as we know, is mostly your ability to organize people, collaborate with people, implement documentation skills, and all of that, communication skills. So there are a lot of soft skills involved in health informatics. And if you wanted to be more technical as well, a lot of health informatics related jobs now are having to do with data. you
Yeah.
like for my role, information analyst, I've had to pick up data analysis skills in terms of, like, learning Power BI, using Excel, Python, at various stages so far in my health informatics journey. So if you wanted to be a bit more technical, yes, it's very good to try to pick up on some tech skills, especially SQL, SQL, Excel. As simple as those may be, they may just be all you need to be able to land a very good job, within this space, right?
Yeah.
So other than that, you're already a pharmacist, right? The healthcare knowledge is important in this space. And all that means is that you should be able to find a way to marry all these things you're learning in terms of the skills and the knowledge you're gathering, to combine with how to actually, bring about improvement, in your specific field. So what I would say in summary here is that don't bother too much about picking up so much skills. I think the first port of call is determining what you actually really want to do as a professional, right? Once you're able to determine that, and then of course determining that will depend on what are your strengths. Do you think you would be able to function as a technical professional? Do you think you're good with coding, right? Or you're more better with managing people, working as part of a team, you know so those are some of the things you should spend your time to think about. And once you've been able to figure those out, then you now look at the specific skills that are required for those particular professional work. I think that's basically the summary. It's not something I can say, okay, you go learn this, go learn that. It may not be that simple for everybody because different people have different interests, right? So once you
Yeah, absolutely.
figured out your interests, then you can easily find out what you need, to excel there.
Yeah, I quite agree with you because I think most times the focus seems to be more on the soft skills part of things.
Yeah,
Can you work in a team or as a team member? How good is your communication skills? How good is your presentation skills? How good is
yeah,
your writing skills? How good are you at conflict resolution? So these are some of the key things I think most employers look out for.
yeah,
And yeah, and looking at the clinical part of things, I mean, you've been working as a team member. I mean, no healthcare worker works in isolation. So a lot of the transferable skills you have in medicine or clinical care or whatever, you can actually uh, comfortably bring them over to this, tech side of things or information analyst or whatever role. Then you now figure out the specific tools that you need to learn.
yeah,
That's the hard part now, the hard skills, and you take it up from there. And I think yes, I also like what you said about the SWOT analysis. I mean, people should be able to do a self SWOT analysis. What are my strengths, weaknesses, and all of that.
yeah,
And I think that sort of gives a clarity as to what you're looking for. Because again, some
yeah,
people just jump because everybody's jumping. So,
yeah,
and when they get into the deep part of the ocean, they're like, why am I here? And all of that. So,
yeah.
Caramel, I hope that gives a little bit of insight as to or clarity as to your question. Then Chris Rebecca is saying what is really the difference between project management and product management? Well, let me just chip in my own small guinea. So I think it's clear cut, really. I mean, if you're looking at the product, it's either maybe a physical object or probably a software or application that somebody gets to use at the end of the day. I download an app and I use it. It's a product, right? Then a project is basically like a plan with a series of events that has a defined outcome and has a start and end date, and usually ends when you've achieved your deliverables per se. you know so if I'm going to release a mobile application, that process has a plan. So the app is the product, then the series of steps is the project plan. So you have two different persons who manage this independently. Though I know in some organizations, the project manager also functions as the product manager, which really shouldn't be the case, but that's fine. So the product manager basically sets the strategy, clearly defines what are the product features, what is this going to have, and all of that. When are we going to release it? Who are our customers and all of that? So the product owner or the product manager defines all of this, while the project guy now comes, okay, this is the plan. Then he really executes the plan. Okay, these are the steps we need to take. Who do we need to bring, talk to, and. So I think that's basically what the difference from my own perspective between project management and product management. So there are two different career pathways, really. And again, it's something a clinician or pharmacist or nurse can comfortably um, do if they really want to do. So,
From if I would just add a chip something to that, from just what I have gathered,
yeah,
in the sector, product management, from to be very honest, is it seems to be specific to the tech industry these days,
yeah,
right? It's specific to the tech industry these days, but projects are anything you can implement anywhere, right? And managing a product is just like project management. Is all these things you need to implement from the start of the project in terms of the planning the product, designing it, testing it, to the end, to the finish line where the person will eventually use it. So
yeah,
if you really want to look at it, it would be from the idea of the output itself. So, what is the end product of this process? So, for products, it's mostly a something that is to be used. But for projects, it could just simply be a service, right? As simple as just a simple thing. So that's the way I would look at that.
okay,
The process may not be clear cut in terms of what you need to do in planning the project or the
yeah.
product, the design, the testing, and all of that. But the end product itself is what really differentiates them.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Then coming to, I mean, getting the job proper, how easy is it to get these jobs in the UK? I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
So people like, I know once we finish, we just get the work. And since the jobs are there, how easy, from your own experience, to land these jobs?
This is the reality check now. Because for to be honest, for most of us that are migrating from smaller countries to the UK, the hope is that after your program you'd at least be able to work, some earn some money, build some experience, even if you really want to go back home, to continue your career. But to be honest, the process could be challenging for some people, but it could also be very easy for some people. I have seen someone who on their first application got a job,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but for me, I had to apply. I should say, okay, roughly about 30 applications I submitted within a space of about 3 months, right? And I was able to get some interviews. I did about up to 10 interviews. I couldn't really traveled for some, but was able to eventually land one. But the truth is, it's the process. And while you're in this process, you can't really be discouraged, especially if you know what you're aiming towards,
Yeah.
right? So it really depends on the person and their circumstance, really. For example, it may not just be you may have applied and may not have gotten the role. It's not because you really do not know what is expected during the interview or whatever. It could just be because you live at a very far distance away from the job and they probably
Yeah.
need someone who is closer, right?
Okay.
So there are so many things. It could be your visa. Your visa could be expiring, and they would say, okay, maybe they needed someone with a longer term visa, or they
Okay.
wanted someone who, you know, just more settled. Maybe someone who has a car because you needed to visit other sites,
Yeah.
of the. So there are so many reasons why one may not get a job. But for me, I had to submit a couple of applications. I had to tweak my CV, you know, at certain points after, doing some interviews, listening to the feedback. I had to, try to reorganize my CV in a certain way, reorganize my, you know, communication skills in a certain way,
Yeah.
and collaborating, like asking questions is really important. After doing a couple of these interviews, I found that it was really difficult for me to get a job. I spoke with a colleague of mine who I'm currently talking with, Ronald, you know, and most of the interviews I had to do, it was a bit different from what I was used to, because for the roles I was applying for, information analyst and data analyst roles, before the interview, they would mostly send me a certain, block of data, like analyze these, come and do a presentation to us and everything. So I know my analysis skills are good. I know, you know, my ability to, draw up a presentation is good.
Yeah.
But communicating, some, you know, findings and all was what I discovered was a bit of a challenge to me, because I'm not someone. I found that I was not really, good with, facing audience and everything. So a night before the interview, I spoke with, my friend, and we're able to run through some things, and share knowledge here, share knowledge there. Talked about certain, okay, your disposition, facial expression, ability to answer questions in a certain way, in an organized way. That was when I really started to implement the STAR approach of answering questions. I'm sure you know what the STAR approach means: is the situation, task, action, and results, approach of answering questions. And that really changed everything for me. It really changed everything for me, to the extent that I attended an interview, and the person who interviewed me was so impressed and be like, I am just the person they need. And even before I left, where the interview venue, they sent me, an employment, notification that I've been taking. So asking questions, trying to identify what your weaknesses are, if especially if you've done a couple of interviews and you've seen that you've not been successful, ask for feedback, and improve on, what you have been told. And within a
Yeah.
short time, you definitely get something.
Then I think that's fine because again, I don't see the benefit in doing things in silos really, because I think I mean some people might be ahead of the curve, when it comes
Yeah,
to certain areas. So there's no use, struggling when you really have people that okay, maybe they've gotten
yeah,
this job or they're in this space. I mean, so it's good to usually ask those questions, reach out, see these are my issues, and I think it makes the journey easier,
yeah,
really.
very well.
Then talking about portfolio, because I know portfolio is something that is very what's the word now, popular in the tech space. So, did you have to build any portfolio to present to them to say this is all the things I've done so far in terms of being an analyst or information analyst or something?
Well, your portfolio is really your experience. Really, it's the many may not even care to know what you've done before. Just be able to tell them. They may not really care to see it, but just be able to explain to them what you can do. And for being in the tech space, I think the interview process sometimes may be a bit straightforward in the sense that they want you to prove yourself. They want you to be able to prove what you can do, right?
Yeah,
And doing that, you need to know the terms, you need to know the language to use, you need to know how to reference previous projects, you know, also using the star approach to let them know, the situations you've been in before, the task you you were probably had to handle, the actions you took, and the results that you got out of those and how it's really affected the project or whatever it is that was the reason you did that work at the time. So if you're able to prove this to them, so they already know that you know what you're doing. They know you know the technology. They know the problems that are that you could face in that kind of a setting, and you know the actions to take to be able to do certain things, right? So it's just you being able to tell them because they know these things as well, but they want you to be able to prove it. So really, that was it for me. There was really
hmm,
no need to build to present portfolios of what I've done. Yes, I do
yeah,
have a GitHub. Yes, it's very important that you store your work and in fact put it on your CV. I've put my GitHub link on my CV, and I've seen several times where people have checked my work and everything there. So, but nobody has specifically been like, okay, show us what you've done before. They just be like, okay, tell us about your previous experience,
great.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's true. But again, some recruiters might also want to,
true,
you know, want a what's the word now? Hands-on demonstration. I remember I
true.
went for one interview. I think the first part of the interview was gave us a data set. Then gave us some basic Excel functions to perform on the data set. Do the VLOOKUP, sorting, filtering, formatting, conditional formatting, and all of those basic Excel
Hmm.
Genie here. So I mean, I think some people struggled with that. Then I think those who are a bit conversant with basic Excel too were able to do
True.
what they were asked to do. So yeah, I think
Yeah, I
it goes
think
both
that's
ways.
that's mostly the process. Okay, what I understood by portfolio is probably maybe having a repository of all your
Yeah, yeah,
previous projects, but for me, I never really faced that. But in terms of what you just talked about now, in the interviews, right?
yeah,
In fact, all the interviews I had to do this in one form or the other. It's either I did it live, where the people watched me,
yeah,
do this analysis, manipulate data in a certain way, or they give me a set of data some days before my interview, right? And like, okay, do this analysis. They ask you a couple of questions, come out with certain outputs, and you come and present, what you found to them. So most of the time, you have this kind of demonstration sort of interview process, right?
yeah.
Just to demonstrate your skills and your ability to be able to solve problems. Yeah, that's very valid.
That's thanks for that. Then I think my last question will probably be, I mean, so what advice do you have for pharmacists who are considering the thought of transitioning from pharmacy to becoming an information analyst or data analyst or yeah,
I would say be prepared for the process
yeah,
because it might be a long process, right? Because transitioning from one sort of thinking, clinical thinking, right,
Mm-hmm.
to coding, to a kind of logical mathematical thinking, maybe a bit of a switch for some people,
Yeah.
right? And there may be a bit of learning curve, depends on how you are approaching your your tech career, right? For example, to be honest, there is no um technology stack that you want to learn that you will not put in effort, right? So there's a
Yeah.
bit of effort to it. And like I said earlier, combining certain of these things, learning, trying to practice, improve yourself, and combining that with normal life activities, maybe a bit of a stress. So it's just mental preparation for the process. Prepare for it, but go for it. Do not be discouraged at all by any difficulty that you may face, because it's an extremely rewarding you know thing to do. I think I have found fulfillment. I'm not tired of being called a pharmacist, right? but being having this knowledge where I know that I can, use data to improve certain clinical or healthcare decisions have really given me that, sort of confidence to know that there's a bright future, ahead. And also seeing how technology is doing wonders, in the healthcare space. It gives you that sort of, encouragement that you continue to remain relevant,
Yeah.
in the system, as time goes on, in the future. So it's an extremely rewarding and fulfilling thing to do, but just be prepared to put in the work, and you'll be very happy for it. Yeah.
So if you're a pharmacist watching, so be ready to put in the work required to get to or become an information analyst. Then talking about being rewarding, when you look at your life as a clinical pharmacist and information analysis, what are there any differences?
I'm more stressed. I am more stressed, but yeah, that's on a more personal, basis. I just need to, you know, put my things in order and organize my time better. But
Yeah.
the difference is that I am more focused right now on certain things, you know, adding more to what could be could be termed as improving the healthcare process, right? Because as a data analyst in this field, a pharmacy information analyst, whatever I do is not really just on a one-on-one basis with a patient. I'm not handing out medications to a patient and counseling the patient on how to use it, right? I am using my knowledge and the output from my work to
Yeah.
advise the hospital, the institution, my managers on the interventions and decisions that can be taken to improve the process of healthcare delivery, right? So it's on a more wider scale, right? So my focus now is on how to continue to do that, so that at the end of the day you could say, okay, Anthony brought up this certain, recommended this certain policy that has saved so many lives and all that. So it's to just be more, you know relevant, as a person, personally. That's what I would say has been the difference for me. So
Yeah.
I've graduated from, you know, that small thinking to the big picture thinking.
To big picture thinking.
Yeah.
Then, in terms of career progression, what does it look like? Because I think somebody just sent me that DM. What does career
Okay.
progression look like? From
No,
being an
career progression is really dependent on you and the pace you want to go.
okay.
Definitely, we know that technology is really fast paced, especially with regards to doing it in health, right? You could choose to, if you wanted to become a data analyst today, I'm focusing on this because that's what I'm, I'm telling people about this because that's what my focus is on. If you wanted to become a data analyst or data scientist, today as a health professional, there are so many paths you can take. You can either choose to go into the academia to become a data, health researcher, right? And there are so many paths to doing that. You could become simply a data analyst with any private healthcare organization. You could work with pharmaceutical, companies,
Yeah.
right? You could work in the NHS if you're in the UK, right? So there's so many parts, and the truth is that the demand for these professionals are everywhere, right? So, and the way the UK work is organized is, so long as you build your skill and you know what you're doing, you could choose the job that you want to do,
Yeah.
right? So it really depends on how much you want to progress as a person, right? If you wanted
Yeah.
to remain loyal in one company, work your way up, the positions are there. Like I'm currently employed as a band five information analyst. There are
Yeah.
band six roles, there are band seven roles, right? So you could work your way up the ladder. But if you wanted to say, okay, I've gotten enough experience and I wanted to, try out something in another organization, they pay better. It's just as simple as applying for the job, doing an interview and getting a new job. So it all depends on how much you really want to do and how you want to approach your career.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. So, I mean, like I used to say, also, information analysts they're actually in demand, and I mean, a lot of organizations are collecting data now. In the healthcare space, there are a lot of softwares, application picking data left, right, and center. So, I'm not sure you can always have enough of data analysts to sort your data, filter out actionable insights and make recommendations for the organization to you know decide whatever they want to do with that data, really. So they'll always be in demand. I'm just trying to check if there is any other question we haven't answered before we sign out. It's almost 1 hour. Time flies when you're having an interesting conversation.
All right.
See, let's see. This is YouTube. Okay. So there are no more questions. So yeah, thank you so much, Tony, for giving us a large chunk of your time. I know in the UK time is money, but you've given us free 1 hour without billing us. So for those watching,
Definitely my pleasure.
yeah, this video will still be up on my feed. So in case you want to come back to look at it, or there's something you think you might have missed, um, okay, somebody just asked the question. Maybe we just quickly take that before we log out. So it said, how long did it take you to transition and land a job? Meaning the period of learning, and when did you convince yourself you were ready to work in tech?
Oh, very interesting question. Right. So I think this will really, give me an opportunity to talk about my journey, right? So far
Yeah,
from Nigeria, I really started, developing interest in picking up certain data analysis skills. I've always been a data person. Of course, yes, I tried, web development at the point, tried, the normal way almost everybody gets into the coding business, learn HTML, CSS, and then you want to build a very pretty website. But I soon discovered that that wasn't really for me, right? So that was when um, I tried my hands on a couple of data sets on Cargo, checked, some of the work that was done there and really found interest, in what was being done. So if you wanted to check Cargo, get some inspiration of, how to do certain analysis, you could go there. Right. So that was really where my interest started picking up in, data. And I quickly started learning Python, right? Did some things with Excel. I volunteered for an organization, in Nigeria just before I traveled, and what they basically used was Excel. They used Excel to do some magic I've never seen, right? So that was when I really started to do certain things with Excel, and you know, yeah, registered for a boot camp, where they taught Power BI, Microsoft SQL Server, but I never really paid so much attention. It was something I did for about a month and I dropped, you know. But when I really, really started, being confident in working was when I did an internship here in the UK with University of Dundee. Right, the internship was something I applied for in passing. I just saw it online one day and I'm like, okay, let's apply for this. It was the summer internship that was to start in July. I applied for it in November. Yeah, in November. So I'd even forgotten that I had applied for that. But towards February, March, they sent an email. I got into the internship, started in July. And I was, it was arranged that I would work with a researcher, a clinical researcher who was asking the question how, how to identify colorectal cancer, earlier on, even before diagnosis. So we had to work with a lot of data, a very
Yeah,
large chunk of data, population data. So this was real world data. It was what really exposed me to, the possibilities that data could do in health, right? So we gathered some of this data, analyzed it. I was, in fact, the first person to work on this data. That was what really made it interesting, right? So did that, and we got some really pretty results that was mind blowing to me, right? And because I was, the major data analyst on that job,
yeah,
and because that I had to, learn my way up in terms of, I mentioned earlier that I was the first person to work with the data. Working with new data is not an easy job because you have to clean it, you have to understand the data, understand what you need, what you can get out of the data. So it was a very long process of studies and developing and trying to upskill. I spent a lot of time on Stack Overflow, spent a lot of time on YouTube learning, right? So after that project, it really gave me the confidence that I was ready to, pick up a job,
yeah,
in the sector. So, and that's what I would really advise anybody to do. Pick up real life projects, right? If you wanted to have develop that confidence and, clarity that you are ready, pick up a real life project, collaborate with people, and do it. See how much you are able to, contribute to a team. You know, you may not be very perfect with your data analysis skills, but working with other people will, expose you to certain things that you can learn, and also gives you opportunity to ask questions, from other people, especially if they are more developed than you, right? So
yeah.
yeah, that was really the game changer for me, picking up that project and doing it, completing it, and I felt I was ready.
Yeah, just to add, Freeman, if you're still watching, so in terms of the length of transition, really, there is no clear cut timeline because I mean, some people it takes them 1 month, like Tony said earlier. Some people just make one application and boom, they have a job already. He had to do 30 applications before he could get a job. I know people who have done 400 applications before they could get a job, really. So there's no defined timelines, really, I think from the point of transition you're mentioning, so he came to the UK, did this MSc and got a job. So probably you probably say that's like 1 year or a year and 6 months. Uh, that's the. I'm just trying to calculate that timeline, really. But for getting a job,
Hmm.
there is no clear cut timelines to that. I think we need to be clear on that because there are a lot of factors
Hmm.
that influence getting a job in the United Kingdom. So it's not as straightforward as a lot of people think it does. Then
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers your question. Then somebody just popped in this. What is the name of the internship and how can one get on projects to practice skill sets learned?
Yeah. Well, the internship I did was the Health Data Research UK Black Internship Program. Right. It normally runs during the application usually opens at the end of the year, sometime around November. So just be on the lookout then. You could also get into that program through the 10,000 Black Interns program that is, run in the UK. You see that these are very legit, internships, and they are even paid internships. They pay you for every hour you work, right? So be on the lookout for these. It's as an addition. It's also, I would also advise people to look out for boot camps, right? There are a lot of boot camps, especially here in the UK. There's one that is sponsored by the Department of Education, right? You can find that on the gov.uk website. If you Google boot camps UK government, you should be able to see that link right there. Right. So you could pick up a particular boot camp that suits your interest. There are some that are related to, hardcore coding, and all that. So you could pick up anyone from there. There are so many others. These are just two that I'm mentioning. But if you go on Google and search for boot camps in the UK or even internships, you'll be able to see a
A
couple,
lot of them.
yeah, a couple that you could get into for free.
Then also, I think I took this Google Data Analytics course. That I haven't finished. Yeah, I think I'm at the stage where I should be doing my capstone project. Because of one thing or the other. I haven't really had time to do that. But
Yeah,
I think from that program, you're able to know there are a lot of free or open data sets out there because I usually get this question: where do I get data to work with? So I think Cargo has a lot of data sets that you can actually pull to work on. I
yeah,
mean, you download the Excel sheets, you see tons of data, so you can do whatever type of analysis you want to do.
yeah,
Then I also know a lot of healthcare data in the UK. I think they have some open data sets that you can pull and work with. So I just thought I should mention that.
yeah. Even on GitHub, you'd be able to find a lot
Yeah,
of
GitHub too. Yeah, yeah,
projects, a lot of work, including the data that was used for the project, just in case you wanted to see how people build up, an analysis project or a coding project, right?
yeah.
So you could see how they've, coded the program and the outputs they've got and the data they've used for, what they did. So go on GitHub, create a GitHub account. Is very, very important. And GitHub is also very essential in the sense that you could get a lot of benefits and offers if you're a student. So if you check education.github.com, right, you could sign up as a student. You could just, it's as simple as, uploading your student ID card and entering your student email, right? You could get, that's also how you get the 3 months free subscription on
Yeah.
DataCamp, right? Because that offer is being given through GitHub. So if you Google education again on education.github.com and sign up with them, you'll be able to get a lot of offers. And you could even get free, Microsoft Visual Studio Code, lessons, a lot of offers on there, right, on GitHub, and a lot of resources and materials on GitHub. Yeah.
All right, thanks for that. Gideon is asking, would you recommend any sequence to learning data analytic tools, or can one pick any tool to learn? So probably
Okay.
like Excel, SQL, Tableau, or is there any
Yeah.
order to that learning?
It's a very interesting question because this is one thing that is very difficult for or starters, it was one of the most difficult things for me. And it's as simple as start from the basics, right? Start from Excel. You could pick up SQL and then simply maybe Power BI or Tableau, depends on what really resonates with you. A lot of people would want to, you know, do Tableau and Power BI together. I recommend it. It's not, I'm not against it at all. But to be very honest with you, you need to understand the industry you are going into and what is properly and what is, probably being used there.
Yeah.
From my discovery in the UK and especially in the NHS, right? What is mostly used are the Microsoft tools, right? Because it's like a network. So they use the SSMS, which they use for the SQL. That's you learn. Yeah, this is the main point with SQL. When you're learning SQL, SQL could come in different varieties. There's the MySQL, there's the TSQL, which is the Microsoft version. There's the Oracle SQL, right? And there's the SQL Lite, right? For the industry in the UK, the the SQL version that is used is the T-SQL, that's the TSQL, right?
Okay.
That's the Microsoft version, right? So, and learning that will also come with learning SSMS, which is the SQL Server Management Studio, right? And yeah, just basically all those Microsoft tools. Power BI is a Microsoft tool. You could get free Power BI desktop on your laptop, right? And use it to practice, So go from the basics, what you consider the basics. And what I consider the basics is Excel, SQL, Power BI, right? And if you wanted to learn um, SSRS or SSIS, which are the integration service and the analysis service that Microsoft offers, is also very valid. Once you've been able to capture these, tools, you've been able to like know how to use them properly. You do the job in no sooner time. And from then, yes, you can graduate then to maybe learning Python, which are the big boys, and then maybe R if you're interested in all that. But work your way up.
All right. Thanks for that. This is going to be the last question. Any other person that has any question, they should please send you a DM.
Okay, sure.
So this is from Okonji Chukwumnaya. So saying, would you say there are any peculiarities with analyzing healthcare data in particular?
Well, it's just like every other data. It's um, healthcare data is the handling that is important in terms of there are a lot of privacy considerations, a lot of security considerations because you may probably be dealing with personal health data, and there are a lot of confidentiality policies associated with health data, right? So it's basically how you use it, how you store it, but it's no different from the general process of analyzing data. The general process starts with cleaning, getting the data first, right, and then understanding the data, cleaning it, doing all the pre-processing procedures that you need to do, doing exploratory analysis before you maybe say, okay, you want to do some statistical analysis or whatever it is that is required to get
Yeah.
the answers that you're looking out for in the data. But there's really no difference in, you know, doing normal analysis with data. What I would say is probably different would be the answers that you're looking for. Like, for example, being in the healthcare industry, and you'd need to know what are the metrics that you'll be looking for, right? Let's say you're working with hospital data and you want to find out what are the waiting times in the emergency department, or what particular drugs are being consumed the most in a particular unit, right? You That is different from you wanting to measure maybe profit margin if we're working with the bank or maybe another financial institution. So building yourself up on some of those metrics and how to do those calculations right? Maybe what may be a bit different, right? So it may require some bit of specialization in that regard. But if you're working in a project, most projects would usually have KPIs that you'll be measuring, right? So it could just be specific KPIs for that project or for that particular report, right? That may you may need to have the knowledge of, but it's really on the general basis in terms of data analysis process. It's not different.
All right. Thank you. Chuku from Naya, if you're still there, I hope this answers your question. Yes, it should. So yes, I won't be taking any other question really because I'm still getting DMs. So Tony has tried. He's
I don't
giving us more
mind.
than 1 hour of his time.
I really don't mind answering further questions if there are any. I really, yeah.
Okay, let me just a minute. Let me bring this up. Where is my Twitter? Yep. Let me see. Somebody is asking for salary. That how much are you people paid?
You want to know my salary? You have to pay me to reveal that information. But yeah, so working in government, the salaries are fixed. To be honest, the NHS pays by pay bands, right?
Yeah.
So depends on the pay band of the job that you're applying for. Every You can easily know what your salary is. Like from the band four, well, I'm really not so sure, but I think the band four would earn about £25,000 a year. The band fives will earn between 27 to £32,000 a year. And yeah, it's categorized in that way, right? So, but if you're working in private, that's where the big bucks, comes in. You could charge, if you're contracting, if you're maybe working as a contractor, you could charge per hour or per day of work and all that. There are some companies that pay as much as up to 350 to 550 or even up to £700 per day,
Wow.
for contractors. Yeah. So yeah, and then there are also private companies that can pay you up to 60,000, 70,000, depends on the job requirements that you are doing, right? So, but yeah, in the NHS, I'll consider those as the more senior roles, right? Which you'll have to work your way towards, but you can easily get some of those, big money in the private sector, especially in the pharmaceutical industries.
That contract job sounds quite interesting. I
Yeah,
mean, how many people earn that amount of money in a day?
yeah,
That's a lot of money, really.
yeah,
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 thanks for that. Because again, I know. I mean, most of the, like you said, NHS pay bands. It's not a secret. It's open. It's out there, and any job you apply for, you're able to see what pay band the job
the
is
job is
tied
in.
to.
Yeah,
So there is really nothing hidden about it. Once somebody tells you I'm on a band five or band six, band eight, you automatically have an idea of how much the person is earning and all of that. Unlike Nigeria, where some job adverts don't even come with salary
yeah,
description, or people are not really that open with how much they earn and all of that. So, but that's a
yeah,
different conversation altogether.
yeah.
So thanks for that. Let me see if there are any other questions. I don't think there's any other question for now. So if you guys are watching, if you're pharmacist and you're looking to transition to information analysis, you can always talk to Tony. His Twitter handle is up there at Anthony Ehimare. You could send him a DM and yeah, he might not reply immediately because work in the UK, I think it's demanding. So, but I'm sure
Yeah.
definitely will make out time to um, share with you guys. Then let me see if I can pop up his LinkedIn profile. I don't know. Then are you able to share that? I don't even know if you can share.
Yeah, I think can I share that? Let me see.
You can pop it up in the chat. Then I'll just put
Okay.
it up on the screen. So you can
Okay.
also connect with him on LinkedIn. So send him messages. What's Gideon saying? That's made of honor. I want to join hand, please. So you can pop him a message on LinkedIn, connect with him. So if there are any questions about transitioning, I think he's in the best position to talk about that because he's been there and he's done it too. Yeah. And if you're new to this channel, I mean, we talk about everything healthcare, health tech, transitioning to different career paths. If you're tired of clinical practice, either as a doctor, nurse, or whatever. So those are some of the things we talk about on this platform. I make a lot of videos. Um, every new video drops on Friday by 8 p.m. Nigerian time, I think 7 p.m. UK time. So yes, you might want to subscribe if that's something you're interested in. And once in a while, I bring in persons who are on this journey or this career path that I talk about to share their experience. Because I believe that hearing from people who have gone through that process makes more sense than just hearing it from someone else because I think a lot of persons are more convinced when they see people in those areas. Uh,
Yeah.
is there a pharmacist that can become a data analyst or information analyst? Yes, where are they? Okay, see one of them here. Is there somebody who is a doctor and is a project manager? Yes, oh yeah, see one of them. Ask all the questions. So that is some of the things we try to do on this platform. So you could just subscribe. And like I said, this video will still be on my feed. So you can always come back to it, watch it, share with your colleagues. If you're a pharmacist, I think you can share within your network so that other people see what opportunities are out there too. Because another thing I realized is a lot of persons want to switch or want to pivot, but because of information, lack of information, they don't know what options they want to look out for. So if you're looking to moving away from pharmacy, clinical pharmacy practice, so being an information analyst is one of them. So yeah, I think that's. Are you able to pop the your LinkedIn profile in the chat?
Yes, I've put that in the private chat. I don't know if you can see
Ah,
it.
okay, okay, okay. I've seen it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Let me just
I'll
copy.
just also put in a few YouTube links where people could learn a couple of data analysis skills, like learn it
Okay,
on
that's
on
cool.
YouTube. These are
So this is his LinkedIn
YouTube
profile.
channels.
So you could just copy it out and connect with him. Just give us a couple of seconds. We'll also share some of the resources that will be useful on your journey to becoming an information analyst. Yeah,
That's all tutorials.
let me see. Then, if there are
Yeah.
any career options you guys are looking to hear from or persons, I mean, you can always pop a comment or send me a DM or YouTube, and I'll try to bring those persons to talk to you guys. Okay, these are YouTube channels. Copy the rest.
Yeah.
So some
These are
YouTube channels, you can pick some of these essential skills, learn it, wise out tutorials, BI elite, then the education.github. What's that one for?
well, it's just for them to be able to, get access to certain offers that GitHub, pushes out occasionally, right? They could get some, you know, um, like for example, I did mention that if you wanted to get the data camp subscription for 3 months, you have to go through GitHub.
Okay.
right? Create a GitHub account, um, put in your student email. This website is only for students, right? Put in your
Okay.
student email, search for the data camp subscription, right? Among the offers, that would be, if you, after registering on that place, you could go to education.github
All right. Thank you so much for that. So, on a final note,
offers.
any last words, final words before we log out to everyone watching?
Well, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking with every one of you, and attempting to answer some of the questions that you asked. I know I'm not the best at communicating the things in my head. They're mostly just there. I'm thinking of how to say it, but I say something else. So I may not have answered your question properly, but feel free to send a message, send a DM. I'll always find time to respond to as many questions as possible. Yeah, for my
All
pharmacy.
right. So,
Uh,
from my side, thank you guys for watching as usual, and hopefully, we'll see next week with another episode.
yeah,
And bye for now.
bye.